to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to the Changing Stage, music gear talk from the manufacturers and musicians who define the biz. Here's your host, Florentino Buenaventura.
Righty. You are tuning into the Changing Stage radio show, powered by WS Radio Networks and brought to you from our folks over at musicpower.com, where real musicians help you with real gear. Oh man, this is going to be a great show. It's going to be a little bit different than we normally do. This show is actually not about musicians, so to speak, or gear, but it's about how those musicians come to us, how we become aware of those musicians. And we have one of the great PR guys, I'm going to say in Hollywood, if you don't mind, Rick Scott. Are you there?
I am here.
Hey Rick, how you doing, buddy?
How are you, Florentino? Thank you for having me today.
Oh man, it's my great pleasure, man. We've done some things. We've had a few of your artists on the show, Jonathan Butler, Brian Culbertson, amazing guys. We've been doing other things with some of your artists, and just the fact that you are so instrumental in such, talented, amazing careers, that's a great thing. And I think that our listeners should know a little bit more about PR because it's such a mystery. So let's kind of jump right in. You've been doing this for quite some time. You've had a pretty, a varied career, everything from being a DJ on-air personality yourself. You've been an artist manager. Tell us a little bit about your history. How did you get into into the business? What's your passions, and how you are now with Great Scott Productions?
Well, you've certainly done your homework, it sounds like, Florentino, so good for you. Gosh, you just covered a lot, which I could talk about forever, I guess. But the key word there, or a couple of them that stood out, was passions, because that's what I do. I follow my passions. Yes, I am blessed that my career has been diverse. Until Facebook and social media took off, most people didn't know that I was living in two different worlds, which I'm not sure how much you know at this point. But I'm in music, and that's what I started my career in. But I've always been an athlete as well.
Oh, wow.
And so over 11 years ago, I started working I started picking up some sports PR clients.
Oh, okay.
I happen to be a cyclist, and so I started representing a cyclist who went on to win a silver medal at the London Games in 2012.
Wow. Okay.
And picked up a 7-time world champion. And so a large part of my time is in music and entertainment PR, and then the other half of the company is in sports, specifically pro cycling, triathlon, endurance sports.
Nice. Are you a road racer, or are you mountain biking?
Yeah, I'm a roadie.
Okay.
I'm a roadie.
Yeah. It's so funny, man. I didn't realize it until I read. I really started delving into the information. We have a great amount of things in common. I used to actually build road bikes when I was younger, like in my 20s. So I'm with you. Knew Lance Armstrong, good or bad, however that was back in the day, and a few of the other folks, and some of the folks from Sacramento that you represent, Roger Smith, the late great Wayman Tisdale. I mean, I knew these guys. I hung out with these guys all the time. I didn't realize how 6 degrees of separation it was. So that's very cool, man.
Well, yeah, and Sacramento, I work with the Amgen Tour of California, the America's Greatest Race.
Okay.
The biggest pro cycling race in the U.S. and have been since 2006. And I'm officially the insider. They created a platform for me this year called the Amgen Tour of California Insider with Rick Scott. There's a section on the Amgen Tour California website where you can see that. And we started the race this year in Sacramento. It was my third time up there. And what a fabulous city you are from. As I said, it was my third time through there. But for whatever reason, this past May, I really fell in love with the place. We were there from a Friday to a Monday, and it was just, the weather was beautiful, the city was beautiful. I love that there's a lot going on. It's got the energy of a city, and that vibrancy, but it's also small enough where you still have that sense of intimacy.
Exactly. And you know, what's the funny thing is, we're mentioning a few of your clients. For whatever reason, a lot of people around that time frame came out. I just had Bobby Gonzalez, who used to play with Earth, Wind and Fire, on the show last weekend. So it's amazing. And that kind of leads us a little bit into how did all this kind of come about? Where tell us a bit about the start of where everything happened, and then how did this progression go? Because not everybody in the business has to be a player, a singer, or anything. There are a lot of different roles and responsibilities that lead to the success of an artist, and this is a huge part of it that most players and most musicians don't know about.
Yeah, and for me, as far as where it started, I was a player.
Okay.
And I had kind of one of those epiphanies. I was a drummer, and I remember sitting in my basement playing drums. I was 16 years old, and just this epiphany that came to me that if I want to have a long-term career, longevity, really throughout my entire career, the best way that I could do that is go behind the scenes.
Okay.
And almost from that point forward, I started to shift my focus, if you will, instead of trying to be on stage, but to learn how, just to be part of the business. I didn't know exactly what aspect that I would be or do, but I from that point forward, I shifted from being a performer to an executive, if you will, working with artists and talent that way.
I feel you.
And then the next step would be, I guess, like a lot of people out there, you get a summer job from college. And I was lucky that someone who my mom went to high school with is a legend in our business named Larry Maggot. Larry was the promoter out of the 70s out of Philadelphia. He still promotes shows in Philadelphia. But I mean, all the big names and all the big shows. In fact, Larry worked with Bill Graham in promoting the Live Aid concert in 1985.
Yeah,
for those of us old enough to remember that.
I was there, man. I was with you there.
Yeah. Well, I was actually on stage Live Aid for 24 hours. I worked a 24-hour shift at Live Aid.
Oh man, that must have been amazing.
I was doing security. I mean, my first job that Larry got for me was doing security at concerts and sporting events. And so I was working all these shows in the summer, and I just always remember what it was like, being backstage and everything like that, and working with, I mean, I was right there. As I said, I was on the edge of stardom, really. I have the drumsticks.
Best of the best there, right?
I'm sorry?
The best of the best were playing there at that.
Oh, yeah, Live Aid. I actually have the drumsticks of Tony Thompson, who played drums that day, not only with Duran Duran, but Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
I mean, I have Tony's drumsticks from that show. I was standing right there, right next to everybody. Apparently, friends of mine in college told me how they could see me all over MTV because I was literally on the side of the stage. So every time there's a stage shot, there I was standing next to Madonna or Sean Penn or whatever else.
Oh man, that's awesome.
But I went from being around that to. I mean, I went to school specifically. I was studying communications management, and I had a writing minor.
Okay.
I always enjoyed writing and creatively, and so what ended up happening was, and I was a DJ in school as well. When I left, I was in Central New York, Ithaca College, and I moved down to Miami for a year and a half, and I went there specifically because I never wanted to just be somebody's assistant. I mean, I don't want that to sound negative because a lot of people have to pay their dues that way. We all pay our dues in different ways.
We all do,
but
right?
I just didn't like the idea of being like somebody like hanging posters in a record store or just being somebody's assistant. So I knew I didn't want to be in New York City, and I knew I wasn't ready for L.A. yet. I knew I needed some experience, and I knew I needed to make some contacts. So I moved down to Miami because it's such a dynamic music city and a music market unto itself. And I thought I would DJ for a little while down there and get into that community. But I think my second or third night that I was there, a friend introduced me to the right person, and bam, I became the road manager for a pop rap group on Atlantic Records called La Trim.
I remember La Trim.
Trim had a #1 record all over California and throughout Texas called Cars That Go Boom.
Yes,
and this
we
was,
like
this
the
was
cars,
1988.
the cars that go boom. We're Tina and Bunny.
This was the late summer, fall of 88 and 89. I was living in Miami, traveling with Trim, my first job out of school. And lived on the road with the girls, and we spent a lot of time in LA shooting videos and traveling, and I got to know the folks at Atlantic Records, and when it was time to move on, I came out to LA to find a place to live and walked into the offices at Atlantic Records, the PR department specifically, and I said, hey, I'm making a move, I'm going to come out here, and they said, hey, there's this great PR firm in the building next door that's looking for somebody, and I went in, took an interview, and walked out with a job. I had never been strictly a PR person. I was more on the management side, but I knew I loved to write. And to be honest, I kind of differentiate PR and management. I say, when you're a manager, you're a full-time babysitter. When you're a publicist, you're a part-time babysitter, and I kind of like that.
That definitely sums it up.
To the artists out there who I love.
No, but it takes a lot to get those artists going, and yeah, it's amazing. In fact, Trim with that song, people don't realize that's the sound that Kesha has now, who's like a million platinum selling artist. I mean, she really took that whole sound from them. So you really you really had a lot of influence on the industry. I mean, just the fact that you were able to drive that group enough to where you've got now an artist who sells a ton. So we actually
the artists do that, Florentino. I don't want to take credit for that. I mean, that's the artist. And in that case with Trim, I was road manager. When I was off the road, they were connected to an independent label out of Miami called Hot Production.
Hate to cut you off here. I just hear the music here. We're so into the conversation. We'll be coming back in a few short minutes. This is Florentino on the Changing Stage, powered by the WS Radio Network, brought to you by MusicPower.com. We'll be back in a few short moments.
Thank you for listening to WS Radio. Improve your business and your life with useful information from experts and thought leaders. WS Radio is radio with ROI.
You may have heard me brag about Progressive Medical Center and just how much they've helped me with my health. And Dr. Goli, one thing that you have helped so many people with is migraines.
Unfortunately, there are millions and millions of Americans who are suffering with migraines and headaches, and they're debilitating because it affects the quality of their life, and they cannot function properly. At Progressive, we get the root cause because we understand that migraines could be caused by nutritional deficiencies, hormonal imbalances, believe it or not, delayed food sensitivities. And once we determine what the real reason is, we put a plan of action together with medication that we get them off slowly, and we put them on an all-natural approach, and the results are amazing.
Incredible. I mean, there's so many people that can say they don't live their lives with migraines anymore thanks to Progressive Medical Center.
And that's what's exciting and rewarding to us as physicians, because we help our patients take control of their health, and that's why they're living well.
Why don't you get a hold of Progressive Medical Center today? Don't live in pain. Don't have migraines anymore. Just go to their website, progressivemedicalcenter.com.
This is your life. Live it well.
You're invited to the Fender Summer Celebration at Guitar Trader, Saturday, July 19th from noon to 5 p.m. Enjoy free food and drink, live music, and more as the Fender Product Development Team demos the latest Fender guitars, basses, and amps. And get your hands on exclusive one-of-a-kind Fender instruments. Bring your guitar with you and get a free Fender restring and tune-up. And get a free gift when you purchase any in-stock Fender instrument or amplifier. That's the Fender Summer Celebration, Saturday, July 19th at Guitar Trader in San Diego. You and your guitar don't want to miss it. Visit musicpower.com or fender.com/dealer event for details.
Your guy, Doug Young, here for Sports Squawk Saturday with your guy, Doug Young, here on WSRadio.com. Hear hot Charger talk from the biggest names in sports every Saturday here on WS Radio.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the coaches training program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
To me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to the Changing Stage, music gear talk from the manufacturers and musicians who define the biz. Here's your host, Florentino Buenaventura.
Yeah, that's right. The second segment of the Changing Stage with Florentino Buenaventura, powered by the WS Radio Network, and brought to you by our friends over at MusicPower.com and Guitar Trader. In fact, I'd like to take a little break and let you folks know that next week on the 19th, Fender is having the Fender Summer Celebration, and it's going to be off the hook. They're going to have live music. They're going to be doing free restringings over there at the Guitar Trader, and that's over at 7120 Claremont Mesa Boulevard in San Diego here. They've got a few of them going around the country, so if you're not in San Diego, why don't you look it up? They're online, and Fender's doing some amazing things out there. So now I'd like to bring it back to Mr. Rick Scott. Rick, you there?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, Florentino, thank you.
Sorry, we were getting into some really good stuff, and unfortunately, you're going to have to pay for the bills with the commercials here.
Absolutely.
So we were kind of finishing up a little bit about your history, and you've got this company now. You've got an impressive list of clientele. I mean, some of the greats of grace. I mean, you've worked with everybody from Rick James, Howard Hewitt from the R&B side. You've got Kurt Whalen. My boy Jonathan Butler. Oh man, he's amazing. Brian Culbertson, #1 jazz artist. So you've kind of got this wide range of artists. Let's kind of start off with how do you find the artists and how do you win them over? I guess that's one big question. How does that all work?
Well, my clients come to me in a number of different ways, and while you're touting my resume or whatever, I will say that I'm incredibly proud of the 9 years that I spent with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees, Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Oh, yeah.
You kind of gave a little mention earlier, but let's make that connection there, because that does relate to one of my most proud moments. Yes, when they got their induction in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, for sure, and more so because I know one of the things you wanted to talk about was, how we do different things. Earth, Wind, and Fire, as everybody knows, is a huge horn band. Oh, yeah. And normally when you go to do a TV show, you've got a postage stamp size stage to try to make everybody fit. And when you've got a 16-piece band like Earth, Wind, and Fire, it ain't going to work. Yeah. So in 1995, I mean, this is 19 years ago, I was in rehearsals with Earth, Wind, and Fire for a tour. It was going to be their second go-around without Maurice White on the road. Oh, and having done it successfully in the fall, there was a lot of interest. And so I was on the phone with the producer of the Today Show, and I explained to him, I said, look, my guys won't do anything any smaller than 16. And he said, well, Rick, we've been kicking around the idea of doing something outside in Rockefeller Plaza. It would involve the guys showing up at 5 in the morning, sound checking, and being live at 7. What do you think? We're going to call it the Friday Morning Concert Series.
Wow.
And bam. I mean, we were the first ever booking on the Friday Morning Concert Series.
And how impactful has that been on career through, the almost 20 years that it's been around? That's amazing.
Absolutely, and all the other morning shows followed suit. Good Morning America does it. CBS This Morning does it. I mean, yeah, it was a landmark thing. And as I said, I mean, I that booking is one of my crowning achievements. So many of the clients that I work with now are jazz artists. They don't get on a whole lot of TV, and so sometimes when an artist comes to me and they ask about, do you have TV contacts? I'm like, have you ever heard of the Friday Morning Concert Series?
I guess that's one good way to win them over, right?
Yeah, right. So as far as how I attract my clients, and things have definitely shifted over the years too as well, and I'm blessed. I've been doing this on my own for my own company after spending a year and a half at a PR firm. I guess I was too young to know otherwise, but at 26 or whatever, I left to start my own thing, and have been doing it that way ever since, 23 plus years later. And initially, I would go after the clients.
Yeah.
I would normally, again, following my heart, following my passion, who I'm into, and start pitching the record labels, start pitching the managers, start pitching the artists about possible representation for PR. And then over time, of course, as you get clients and you do good work, you never know who's watching, and that's something that I believed long ago. You don't know who's watching and who's paying attention or who's connected to what. And
that's so true.
So I just knew that I had to do the best that I could with any project, even if they gave me a no-name artist or whatever, which a lot of them were, a new artist starting out or whatever. I mean, you don't start with Earth, Wind, and Fire. You build to Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yeah.
And so doing that ended up leading me to eventually signing Earth, Wind, and Fire with a manager who has a lot of big names like that. And so things grew that way. And over time, things started shifting, and it's now more so that clients come to me, whether it's the record label or the manager or the artist, that approach me and see if I'm interested, see if I'm available. And every once in a while, I'll reach out for something. Usually there's a handful of times a year where I'll reach out to a manager or an artist. I'll hear that somebody's working on a project, and I'll be like, hey, I'd love to work with this artist. And Brian Culbertson happens to be an example of that. I pursued Brian for a while, to be honest with you, and it was one of those things where you get told no, and you stay at it. We're in the same circles. We would see each other a lot. We were working together. I was representing the Smooth Jazz Cruise, and so we would work together every year on the cruise. And I had known Brian for a dozen years or something, and then finally I got a call from his manager asking if I'd be interested in working with Brian's festival, the Napa Valley Jazz Getaway, which just had its third edition last month up in the Bay Area. And then that led to actually representing Brian personally with his most recent album, the number one album, Another Long Night Out.
Yeah, and we talked about that on the show, and it's kind of funny. It wasn't just jazz that he had. I mean, he's had the time. He's had so many different, types of music. Funk. I mean, he's a big funk guy, so it's just amazing.
Yes, he is, which is probably going to be his next project. But
can't wait to hear that one.
We'll see what he settles in on, but that's where he's leaning. And a lot of these festivals that I work with, which is how you and I first got acquainted, was the San Diego Jazz Festival back on Memorial Day weekend.
Yep.
And the San Diego Jazz Festival also. A lot of these festivals, there's a lot of crossover, and it's all in the area that I specialize in: contemporary jazz, urban AC, and when you're working with a lot of the urban AC stuff, that's when you get the funk acts like a Morris Day and the Time, or Charlie Wilson, and then you get some of the newer acts like a Maxwell or a Jill Scott and people like that.
Yeah. So we've got about 3.5 minutes left before the next break here, but essentially, what are some of the things that you use from a traditional media vertical to help promote these artists? What are some of the out-of-box things like you talked about with the concert series that you helped to kind of inspire? And then how does that translate for, say, new artists coming out versus obviously established artists like Earth, Wind, and Fire?
I think the biggest thing that everybody has to do these days is you have to differentiate yourself, because everybody puts out a record and because it's independent now, and everybody has a studio in their bedroom, or can. And so with so much new product being released, you absolutely have to differentiate yourself from the pack. And the media, I believe, and I don't know what your mailbox is like, Florentino, but a lot of journalists out there are getting at least 200 press releases per day.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy.
150 to 200 press releases per day, and they're getting that number of CDs or albums to download per week.
Yeah.
So how do you cut through that? And that is, you tell a compelling story. And that's my job as a publicist, is to try to tell a compelling story. What is unique? Any artist out there is unique in their own way. When a saxophonist comes to me or a keyboardist comes to me, I try to figure out, okay, why is Brian Culbertson different than Jeff Lorber? Mm-hmm. And what is unique about his story than anybody else? And that's what I try to tell to the media to make them pay attention. I always say, Florentino, that my job is to lead the horse to water. In other words, I try to guide the media to listen to a project or to pay attention to an artist. I can't make them drink, meaning I cannot make them listen to it, or I cannot make them attend the concert or whatever I'm trying to pitch at the time. And I can't make them like it, even if I do. If they do listen to the record and they do come to the show, I can't make them like it. That's where the artist comes in. But if you tell a compelling story, you make it interesting, you cut through that clutter, because these journalists these days, they are overloaded with material to choose from. And they might have 5 slots to review an album that week, and they've got 200 to choose from. Yeah. How do you get to be one of those? How
do you differentiate yourself? And I think that applies to, like you said, any artist, from the ones that are just starting out to the ones that have been doing it for a long time. And, what are some of the media verticals besides journalists that you would say? We've got about 45 seconds left.
Well, I guess the thing that I would say in 45 seconds is social media. You got to use social media as much as, for the new artists out there, you absolutely must use social media. And the established artists need to use that as well, because there's less space than there used to be. And for some of the quality artists out there, whatever, you're competing against the artists on American Idol and The Voice. These, but manufactured artists that are all over TV. And so, again, how do you cut through that clutter? Social media enables you to tell your own story in your own words.
Wow, that is amazing, awesome information, because really that's, as artists, whether you're like myself, or a radio show host or somebody making music, it's all about kind of driving that awareness. And it's that time. We want to thank everybody for joining us. We want to thank the Lord above for making this all happen for us. WS Radio Networks for bringing us on the air, and musicpower.com for helping support us in every way possible. Florentino, The Changing Stage with Rick Scott. Tune in for shows to come.
You're invited to the Fender Summer Celebration at Guitar Trader, Saturday, July 19th from noon to 5 p.m. Enjoy free food and drink, live music, and more as the Fender product development team demos the latest Fender guitars, basses, and amps. And get your hands on exclusive one-of-a-kind Fender instruments. Bring your guitar with you and get a free Fender restring and tune-up, and get a free gift when you purchase any in-stock Fender instrument or amplifier. That's the Fender Summer Celebration, Saturday, July 19th at Guitar Trader in San Diego. You and your guitar don't want to miss it. Visit musicpower.com or fender.com/dealer event for details.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Are you ready to get real about your music? My name's Florentino, and I'm the host of The Changing Stage. On my show, we get the real stories of how great music and musicians are made. You know who else is real? The professionals at musicpower.com. They help serious players make music happen with the right advice, direction, and cutting-edge gear. Isn't it time you leave amateur hour behind? Then go to musicpower.com. Real musicians, real gear.
You've heard me bragging about Progressive Medical Center and how they've helped me feel so much healthier. But one thing, Dr. Agoli, that a lot of people come to you with is just unexplained pain. They just can't get any relief. Why can Progressive Medical Center's Pain Management Center help them?
First of all, we have to acknowledge that pain is for real, and you've got acute pain and chronic pain. Here's the problem. That acute pain turns to chronic, which is long-standing, and no one's getting to the root cause. There's several key diagnostic components that help us get to the root of what's causing this pain. Is it inflammation? Once we do a thorough evaluation to get the root cause, determine if it's structural or if it's a metabolic issue. And this way, we put an individualized program for pain management involving correcting the spine, using certain injections when necessary, and we get our patients out of pain quicker, and they stay out of pain because we teach them how to live their life well.
Don't let yourself live in pain any longer. Get a hold of Progressive Medical Center today at progressivemedicalcenter.com.
Progressive Medical, this is your life, live it well.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to the Changing Stage, music gear talk from the manufacturers and musicians who define the biz. Here's your host, Florentino Buenaventura.
We are back with segment 3 today on the Changing Stage radio show, powered by the WS Radio Network and brought to you by musicpower.com, where real musicians help you with real gear. And we've got some incredible guys here today. Now we've got a few folks from Fender, some product specialists. They're going to be talking about the gear that they're going to be coming out on the 19th. And we have Danny and Rick. Guys there?
Yeah, how you doing? What you know?
How's it going? That's Rick Heins and Danny Guiono. Did I pronounce that right, Danny?
Yeah, it would be Guiono, or if you want to do it Americanized, it would be Guyan. It's all good.
Great name, man. I love that name. My last name's Buenaventura, so you can feel for me too, right? It's a little long. So, hey, gentlemen, we're excited. You guys are going to be in town here in just a little under a week. How's everything going on at Fender? We're getting everything ready for the 19th.
Yeah, absolutely. We've selected the gear for bringing it out with us. It's going to be some great, really cool, unique, one-of-a-kind pieces there. Some really interesting guitars with different kind of woods and things like that. And then got some amps that really limited edition, some really cool sparkle finishes and stuff like that. It's going to be awesome. Yeah.
And now to kind of for the folks that are listening, Rick Heins, he's responsible for the amp line, and Danny is going to be is responsible for the acoustic line. You guys are the product managers for both those, correct?
Yeah, actually, Rick. Yeah, I'm a product specialist.
One more time, Rick.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'm the product manager for amps, and then again, Danny was saying he was the product specialist for acoustics. Okay, very cool. So, Fender is pretty much the first name in the music business when you think of music instruments. First guitar, at least, from all historical documents, the Telecaster was the first electric production model. Tell us a bit about the history of Fender and some of the things that you've seen, that Fender's seen throughout history. Well, since 1946, Leo Fender's been at it. He was always a tinkerer. He actually started off, making PA systems of all things, which is kind of interesting, and saw the real need for musicians around that time because big deal at the time was Western swing. And he started out actually, making amps before he made electric guitars, which is kind of cool. And he made those actually in his house with a friend, and it was actually K&F before it was Fender.
Wow.
I was making lap steels first before electric guitars. So I always find that kind of cool, thinking about him tinkering in his house and baking the lap steels in his oven. And it's hard to believe that he went all the way from there to, this full line of amps and guitars and basses. He's he's one of those people that we all try to aspire to. I mean, his creativity and his desire to make better instruments for musicians is something that we try to instill in ourselves every day.
You know what's funny is that he wasn't really a musician himself, but he loved music so much that he put his heart and soul into it. That's what I've always heard, is he was a big Western swing guy, and that's why he just wanted to help the bands that he loved, right? Is that correct?
Yes. He was always working with musicians in the day, and they were actually helping him make the modifications, from the Tele to the Strat. From the initial amps to, from Tweed all the way on up. It was always talking to musicians, what do they need? And you're right, he didn't play guitar. And one of the stories around Fender is that Freddie Tavares, one of the people that worked with him, who was an amazing musician, he would actually tune the guitar open so that when Leo would pluck the strings, it would be in tune and at least sound okay, because he would strum it without it ever being in tune, and people started going crazy around the office.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, and just the innovations that he provided for the business, and that you guys continue to provide for the business. It amazes us. Both me and Paul were just the first segment. We were just basically we're fanboys. I'm not gonna lie. we totally love everything that you guys have done. We talked about some of the iconic players. We're talking a bit about guitars, but there's so many different amps and just all kinds of different stuff that you guys put out. But we were talking about Clapton, we were talking about Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and those are just names we know from the guitar side. But you guys also have a lot of amp endorsees as well, and throughout history, tons of guys. Rick, tell us a bit about those guys.
Well, sometimes from back in the day when you watch Hendrix and stuff, you see him with those huge Marshall stacks, and and it sounded amazing, and it's a very iconic thing. But a lot of times when he's in the studio, he didn't need that kind of rig. So I mean, there are documented things of him using, twins and other Fender amps to get those sounds. Clapton, we have a line of his signature amps. And a big sound that people love from that era is, the Layla album, and that's all a Tweed Champ. It's a 5-watt amp that he's cranking up with a Strat, and that sounds amazing. People sometimes forget that Fender amps, along with Fender guitars, they were designed together. It's almost like peanut butter and jelly, so to speak. It's they go well together. They were tuned to each other. And when you play like a vintage Telecaster to an old Tweed amp, it makes total sense. The EQ of the amp mixed with the sounds of the guitar, it just sounds perfect. Yeah,
I totally agree. Now, we talked a little bit about what brought Leo into the business. Now, you two gentlemen, are in positions that are pretty cherished in the business. I mean, I think any musician would give his right or left hand, well, almost, to be in your positions. What does it take to become a product specialist over at Fender?
Well, if I can answer that,
Either one you can answer.
My story is kind of a dream story, more or less. I was in a completely non-related industry and got the opportunity to find a position as an intern at a company called KMC, who Fender had purchased a bunch of years ago, and that's really how it all started. I'm the guy that was in the right place at the right time.
Wow. And what did you do before that, before KMC? Were you a musician?
I was actually in the construction industry, gigging every weekend.
Oh, wow.
Music has always been in my blood. And like I said, it was just finding the right person at the right time and just being there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a lot of hard work since then, I assure you. It's definitely not all rainbows and butterflies.
And I think that's a story that's pretty common. And does that story apply to both of you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been a musician since I was probably 16 or 17, and always tried to learn about guitars and amps. But I came to it in a really strange way. I actually came into Fender as a graphic designer.
Oh, okay.
That was my specialty. I did fine art, and then I started doing graphic design, and that took off. But my dream was to work for Fender, and so I actually moved across the country from New Jersey to get the job at Fender. And I did graphic design, so I did brochures and stuff for about 6 years. But, my passion was always guitars and amps, and I was always, trying to figure out how to make my own amps or modify them and asking questions there.
And when the time came, of course I jumped at it. Luckily, my knowledge of guitars and amplifiers definitely helped me get that position. And then, like Danny said, it's a lot of hard work and really working on your craft and understanding what this stuff does and trying to have a vision as to where it could go in the future.
Yeah. Now, when it comes down to being a product specialist or a product manager, what do you do in that role? What if someone wanted to be in that role, what would they expect to be responsible for?
There's a lot of administrative stuff, certainly, but there's, from the ground up development, we get to put in our opinions and what we think would be best for certain applications.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. We get to put our stink on it, if you will.
Yeah, that's very cool. And, Danny, for you, you get a chance to be part of actually watching the guitars get bent and all that other fun stuff. Are you a part of the design crew, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's basically from the beginning up, the design ideas. I certainly don't go to the factory and bend the woods myself. But I just basically work in collaboration with the product manager, and we just kind of help. We get help through R&D and different sourcing to find out, what the best options would be for the player. I mean, that's really ultimately what we're all about.
Well, that's awesome. And now you've got Fender hasn't been known so much for the acoustic guitars, but you guys got a tremendous line. We got about a minute left. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
About the acoustic line?
Correct.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we got basically guitar for every player. We have collector customs, which is repairing the finest lutherie with one-of-a-kind art. Basically, it's just great sounding art, if you will. We got the pro customs, finely crafted instruments, limited editions. We had master luthiers work on these, some advanced construction techniques. The rich tone woods. There's a hot rod series for the player that really wants to stand out visually as well as tonally. There's just a lot of cool stuff. I mean, the classic design has been around for ages. The California series was where it all started in the 1960s. It's all about the fun and the sun. And, it's about taking time off and taking time off for personal. Taking personal time.
Definitely. And you guys are, you still have California offices, but you're out in Arizona right now. Is that correct as well?
That's correct, yeah. Yep, the corporate office is in Scottsdale.
Yep.
Sunny Scottsdale.
We still have us up north, the custom shop, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to take a pause for the cause. I hear that music coming in. This is the Changing Stage radio show powered by WS Radio Networks, as well as brought to you by musicpower.com. We're going to bring Fender back with Danny and Rick very shortly. My name's Florentino. Thank you for listening in. Stay tuned. We've only got a few moments of commercials, and we'll be right back.
Are you an adventurous wine drinker? Would you enjoy trying a bold red with dark fruit and a spicy finish from Hungary? Or an amphora-style Chivi Pinot with layers of complex flavors? Carpathian Wines hand selects extraordinary wines from premier Central European wineries. At CarpathianWines.com, you'll find amazing dry whites, big juicy reds, even the famous Tokaja Azul. Discover award-winning limited production wines from the heart of Central Europe. Find them only at CarpathianWines.com.
I raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children.
After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The World Link program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
You've heard me bragging about Progressive Medical Center and how they've helped me feel so much healthier. But one thing, Dr. Agoli, that a lot of people come to you with is just unexplained pain. They just can't get any relief. Why can Progressive Medical Center's Pain Management Center help them?
First of all, we have to acknowledge that pain is for real, and you've got acute pain and chronic pain. Here's the problem. That acute pain turns to chronic, which is long-standing, and no one's getting to the root cause. There's several key diagnostic components that help us get to the root of what's causing this pain. Is it inflammation? Once we do a thorough evaluation evaluation to get to the root cause, determine if it's structural or if it's a metabolic issue. And this way we put an individualized program for pain management involving correcting the spine, using certain injections when necessary, and we get our patients out of pain quicker and they stay out of pain because we teach them how to live their life well.
Don't let yourself live in pain any longer. Get a hold of Progressive Medical Center today at progressivemedicalcenter.com.
Progressive Medical, this is your life, live it well.
Ultrastar Mission Valley Cinemas offers D-Box motion seats for select titles. Now playing in D-Box, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. The seats actually move with the on-screen action. D-Box works with the filmmakers during the editing process to create an experience like no other. You actually feel the movie exactly as it appears on the screen. You'll feel like going through the sky with Captain America and Falcon when you reserve one of these seats. There is an upcharge to experience Captain America the Winter Soldier in D-Box, but it's worth it.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to the Changing Stage, music gear talk from the manufacturers and musicians who define the biz. Here's your host, Florentino Buenaventura.
All righty, we just paid some bills, and now we are back. This is a Changing Stage radio show powered by WS Radio Networks, brought to you by Music Power. And we are back with Rick Heins, who is responsible for Fender's amp line, and Danny Guiono, who is responsible for the acoustic line of guitars. And we were just chatting a little bit about the history. We were chatting about some of the iconic figures that have used the Fender gear, which the list we can actually do a whole show just naming all the people. And then we were talking a bit about the acoustic line. Now Rick, you handled the amps, and you kind of mentioned a few of the people that have used them. Tell us a little bit about what's going on the amp line.
Okay, well, we have this goal in Fender because I think that Leo always felt this way too. We have to pay homage to what we've done in the past because we realize that players love those sounds. That's what they grew up on, the records that they listen to. But at the same time, we want to be forward-looking and try and adapt to, players today because sometimes their needs aren't the same needs as the players from the 60s or 70s. And also looking to, things that might be, possible for future musicians to use something that they hadn't thought of or something that, it adapts over time. So as far as something that we've done recently, we actually did something called the 68 Custom Line.
Okay.
And what we did with those is in 1968, Fender actually changed the way that they made the amplifiers look. They went from what they consider a black face to a silver face. And, at that point, Leo had sold the company to CBS, and initially those amps pretty much stayed the same as their original blackface counterparts, but over time they did some modifications that weren't really player-centric. They weren't listening to the players and what they needed. And so we got a lot of demand from people where, these days a silver face amp isn't something that anyone's ashamed of. They think they look cool and there's something different and unique. So rather than us just make those amps again without doing, putting a little spin on it, we thought about this, and I talked to my boss, and the idea was that what if we made these amps to look like their 1968 counterparts, but instead of doing modifications that were counterintuitive to guitarists, they were actually things that guitarists could use. So what we did is we, on the traditional Fender blackface amps, if they have two channels like a deluxe reverb or a twin, you can't use the reverb or tremolo on both channels. You can only use it on the vibrato channel. So with the new ones, you can use it on both sides. We changed the EQ on the second channel, so now you have different tonal options.
And then we added a Celestion speaker to give kind of a different sound. So because we know that a lot of guitarists now love to crank up their amps and get natural, tube distortion.
Yeah.
And we felt that the Celestion speakers kind of help do that. So for someone that wants a little more aggressive sound and maybe they use pedals, the 68 Customs might be perfect. If there's someone that looks for a traditional, super clean, Wind Cries Mary sort of sound, the 65s are perfect. So, we saw that as a bonus, and we've had a lot of really positive reviews, and people love the new 68 Customs. So that's been great.
Yeah, my producer, Paul Berezetsky, is also the guitar player in my band, and we're going to be jamming with you guys on Saturday. He loves the Fender sound. In fact, he was talking about the Blues Junior that he was playing over at the Guitar Trader.
Yeah, the little tweed one.
Yeah.
Excellent.
He wanted to ask a couple of questions of you folks, so shoot away, Paul.
I recently listened to this interview by Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top, and he was talking about, back in the day touring with Jimi Hendrix, and he told this story that I was really surprised to learn. I wasn't aware of this, that back then the Stratocasters came with a 3-way selector switch where you could only basically choose one pickup at a time. And Jimmy had this guitar that had a defect where the switch would kind of get stuck, or you would be able to put it in between positions. And he was the one that discovered, the combination of pickups like 1 and 2 and 2 and 3, and then took it to Fender, and Fender, redesigned the whole thing and made it into a 5 selector switch.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that story, but there are other stories where people found that sound in between by accident. They'd actually either balance the selector between the 2 pickups, or they put a matchstick in there to stop it at that position.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people just assume that's, Fender's been doing that forever. But honestly, Fender didn't have a 5-way switch until, I believe, 1979 or in the late 70s.
Wow.
So those quintessential in-between sounds weren't official until that time. So it's one of those happy accidents that happen, and changed the industry. A funny thing about Leo is when he was designing amps, his idea was that they were always supposed to be as clean as possible. So the natural tube distortion that would come out was actually what he considered a defect. So over time, he'd make the amps louder and cleaner, not realizing that actually people were craving that sound of the amps distorting because they found it pleasing and they thought it sounded great.
Yeah, I've heard that. The sound that we have. I was watching a documentary on the making of the guitar, and they were saying that the sound that's out right now was not necessarily what Leo was targeting with all the
no, not at all.
So we're going to have all this fun stuff at the event coming this Saturday the 19th. Can you tell us from your perspectives what's going to be involved? What can people expect from Fender's Summer Celebration?
Well, from the amp side of things, I'm going to be talking about the 60 years of the Strat, which is, it's an amazing history. It's full of really cool anecdotes and just some things that maybe people didn't realize about the Strat, or it's coming into being the cultural phenomenon that it is. There are so many different factors involved with that, and there's a whole backstory as to why it came to be and how culture kind of accepted it and why it was the perfect time for the Strat to hit rock and roll. And not just that, we'll talk about a bit of, history on Fender amps, and also just like the line that we have. A lot of people don't realize how many different cool amps and sizes and things that we do. Sometimes it's hard for musicians, guitarists to get out there and see all the things that they've heard about. So we're hoping to have some things that people haven't heard before. We want people to ask us questions. We want people to try the gear out. We're hoping to just, have things that are really going to, make them, excited and make them feel as passionate as we do about the brand and understand why Fender, is still number one. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah. And, I'm excited really, Danny, for the acoustic line. What are we going to expect from the acoustic line at the event?
Well, we're going to bring some U.S. custom shop acoustics for sure. There's actually there's a great history behind Fender acoustics. Obviously, Fender acoustics were riding on the coattails of the Strat. But we make some really cool guitars. There's bolt-on neck acoustics that I'm sure a lot of people aren't even aware of. So we're going to bring a lot of cool stuff. And again, it's going to be an open question. So anybody has any questions, they can feel free to ask, and hopefully bring some stuff that, like Rick said, that people haven't really seen yet.
I think that's going to be awesome, and they're going to get a chance to have you guys actually take a look at the guitars as well, give you your advice, and you're going to have tune-up experts. You're putting strings on the guitars. Curbside Vinyl, me and Paul will be playing at the event. I'll be hosting as well. So this is going to be a fun time, and I'm like a giddy schoolgirl right now, waiting for the 19th for all this fun stuff, and it's going to be great. And, and I want to thank again musicpower.com and Guitar Trader for, connecting you guys and to our community here. San Diego is just a tremendous place. And, you guys I don't know if you guys are going to be back, but I know that, we're going to have some more folks right before the event. Is that correct? Are you guys coming in, for the radio show next week?
Yeah, Friday night. Yeah, Friday evening we'll be in studio.
Cool. Well, hey, we're going to be coming back to you next week. We're going to be broadcasting. We're recording Friday because we have to get ready on Saturday. But we'll be broadcasting that show at 11 o'clock our normal time. And then right after that is the event. My name is Florentino. This is the WS Radio Network, powered by musicpower.com. Thank you, Danny and Rick. You guys are awesome. I'm looking forward to meeting you guys. And we're going to have a great time next week.
Progressive Medical.
Hey, this is Heidi Rue, and Progressive Medical Center has literally changed my life and my health, but I'm not the only one. Adele suffered from bone deterioration, bone overgrowth, profound muscle discomfort, physical exhaustion, and mental fog. In fact, the bone deterioration becomes so serious that she had to have back surgery. Well, after the surgery, she still didn't feel well, and so that's when she heard about Progressive Medical Center. Progressive Medical Center discovered that her adrenals weren't working properly, her hormones were out of whack, and the drugs she had been taking were doing more harm than good. Adele came into Progressive Medical Center in a walker, physically and mentally exhausted. But now she's a world traveler. She hikes and walks several miles a day, and it's all thanks to Progressive Medical Center. 770-676-6000. 770-676-6000.
Progressive Medical. This is your life. Live it well.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind. Connected World Magazine is dedicated to reporting on the next generation of M2M and connected devices. Subscribe today for only $12.97 at connectedworldmag.com/subscribe. Written for the fast-paced, device-enthused individual or business, Connected World Magazine provides unique insight and analysis to all things connected. Subscribe today for only $12.97 at connectedworldmag.com/subscribe. Connected World. Living the connected life has never been easier.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Hi, this is Felix Taberna, host of Race and Sports Radio. Join our cast and crew every Saturday and Sunday right here at WSRadio.com, beginning at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. Race and Sports Radio.